There we go. Now I'm doing the recording. So yeah. So that's just a little bit about me. Um, I will start my screen share as well because I have my play. How do we move that? There we go. So, for me, the biggest thing about using my intuitive gifts is actually how I connect into myself, as much as how I connect into other people. We can look at the feelings that we have within ourselves, and that is part of our intuition. So, any feeling is the reaction to what's going on around us or what we're dealing with, and it's actually a really important part of it. Of ourselves. When we go through life, we go in different cycles. So, one of the cycles is a 7 year cycle, which is basically for the first 7 years, we are still connected into our mother's energy field and we don't separate from that until around the age of 7. So, that's why, kids who are in about year 2 go through what I lovingly call the arsehole phase, where they are pushing every boundary known to man and pissing their parents off. It's because they actually don't know energetically where they end and other people begin, which is, obviously a problem for them. So then that next 7 years is really about sort of individuating themselves, finding out who they are. And then we go into a 7 year cycle of sort of settling into womanhood or manhood before we then get our psychic gifts. So the reason at the 21st birthday parties people get given keys is it's actually the key to the universe. It is the key to our psychic gifts. And that meaning has actually been lost over the years. But it's about then at around 21, we would start getting mentors, elders in the community who would help guide us with our intuitive gifts to be able to work in our unique way, is probably the easiest way to describe it. So how do I do like that? I didn't even know how to change slides. There you go. Learning technology is not my strong point since I stopped working with it. Anyway, so this again is this is one of the hang on, I've just got to try and move you guys because you're sitting over my slides. Okay, I'll have to try and remember it. So we all have intuitive capabilities. Absolutely every person in this world has access to insight, intuition, psychic senses, but we close them down. And often we're closing them down because we've been shamed for them or because of past conditioning. So a lot of my past stuff, hang on. Oh, back. How do I go back? There we go. Hang on. I'm going to have to exit out of that. I can't find I just had to end somebody in, but I couldn't quite find the way to do it. Anyway, you'll get used to my technological inability soon. It's not one of those muscles I exercise. So frequently what happens is we close it down. We will be shamed for it. Now, the difference between guilt and shame, if anyone knows Brené Brown's work, is actually that guilt is about our actions. It's about I've done something bad. Shame is I am bad. I am a naughty kid. It's where we become that thing. And when we're thinking about it, well, which I is it? Is it the I that is the observer? Is it the I that is me? Which aspect of myself is it? But we actually take on a lot of shame around our intuitive gifts, especially if, we're in an environment that doesn't understand beyond the physical. We can also have a lack of understanding about what we're accessing, which can create fear. So I know there was a number of times, obviously in my teenage years, where we would do things like Ouija boards, or we would, try and summon things at parties. And oftentimes it was just the energy in the room was scary enough because we were trying to create fear. And we thought we were accessing something really naughty and out there and all the rest of it. But when we start to intentionally tune in to that intuition, we access completely different things. And I've got a mentor who actually says, because if we're sitting in fear, if we're sitting in nervousness, if we're sitting in that more negative feeling emotion, all we need to actually do is turn on the light. So if our intention is that we are accessing higher frequencies, and my rule of thumb is I will access any frequency higher than myself. And I don't let any frequency lower than myself into my home unless it's somebody that I live with, because I know they don't do the same energetic work, so their frequency does tend to be a little bit lower. But that's like an intention that I have set, and it's a container that I have set around my house, especially in my bedroom, because I used to get things, spirits, entities, whatever you want to call it, coming in to access me at night time, and it was not in my highest good. So again, we need to be able to be really clear with our intuition and intention of what we're wanting to access it for. So before we use our intuition a lot, it is actually like an unexercised muscle. If we don't go to the gym regularly, we don't have toned muscles. We don't have finely honed muscles. We're not as quick as we could be. We're not as fast as we could be. We're not as accurate as we could be. But when we start to develop them, when we start to work our intuitive muscles, when we start to practice with them, we get them honed, we get them fit, we get them much more easily able to read. And it does take time, patience, and dedication to practice. And this is part of the reason that I'm, I guess, changing the way that I want to work with intuition with people, because there is a huge, a huge part of it is all about practice. So we have a mix of IQ, EQ, and SQ. So intelligent quotient, emotional quotient, and spiritual quotient. Now, back in the day, when I was growing up, IQ was, lauded as the gold standard. If you're not intelligent in the way we tell you to be intelligent, then you're stupid or whatever it is. Then we, around more around the 90s-ish, we started hearing this buzzword of emotional intelligence. Now, I still think emotional intelligence is in its infancy. There are very few people who actually use it the way that it needs to be used. There are very few people who look at it in terms of the greater whole, of course. I happen to surround myself with people who are exhibiting those behaviors. And spiritual intelligence, if we look at our children, they are hugely spiritually intelligent. They will come through and tell us about the things that they know, or the things that they see, or the things that they feel. And they are spot on, because they don't have as many stories around it as we do. The biggest thing I always say as well is that our soul knows the answers. And what happens is we talk over it. We will get an inkling of intuition. We will get a gut feeling. We will have something pop into our heads, whatever it is. And we will start then to logic over it. We will start to use our more masculine brain to start to intellectualize what we're feeling, what we think we know, all of those things. And we often talk ourselves out of our intuition. We tell ourselves that we don't actually know what we're talking about, or any of the other things. So the other thing that is a little bit mind-blowing is most people think everything's in between our ears. That our brain is our subconscious, our brain is the thinking bit, all the rest of it. It's not. It's our entire auric field. In fact, I think it's the 5th level. I know when I test it where it is. I think it's about the 5th level, which actually is where the Akashic records are held. And the Akashic records are the records of everyone we've ever been, who we are now, and everyone we're going to be. And it's all held in our auric field. So everything that's happened to us is actually in our auric field as a record. So we can access every moment. And I heard this really crazy statistic, and I'd love to know if it's true. But if your mum, say, dropped a vase when you were about 3, Your brain, if you could access the right part of it, could actually tell you how many pieces it broke into, which I think is freaking phenomenal. But that's how much information comes in. Dr. Joe Dispenza in What the Bleep Do We Know says we get something like 400 billion bits of information coming in every second. And of that, we can process around about 2,000. But in terms of the way we chunk it up, if we're in stress, we're only processing probably 2 chunks of information. If we are unstressed, if we are calm, we can process up to 9 chunks of information. So you can imagine with modern life, where we are built to move at walking pace and we're screaming through life at 60, 80, 100K an hour, plus having inputs from TVs, social media, all the other things, you can see how it gets really noisy and our body isn't necessarily primed to be in its highest intuitive state. When we get those little flutterings of intuition, like I say, we will often go into the logic mind, the more masculine mind, and we will start to logic our way out of it or explain ourselves, into it. One of the things that I say to my clients is one of the hardest things that started for me when I was starting to practice kinesiology, especially in clinic, but also in the studying phase, was that I had to learn to speak before I thought. And I get my clients when they're working with me, I say to them, you have to tell me that first little thing. It may sound crazy, it may be a bit out there, but you say the first thing. Because that first thing makes a huge, huge difference. It will end up linking through, even if it doesn't feel like it's connected. And as I said before, we need to exercise our intuitive muscles the same way we'd go to the gym to hone our physical muscles. And we need to build trust and intimacy with our intuition. The more we trust our intuition and the more we rely on it, the more reliable it becomes. It's like an upward spiral. And so if we keep ignoring our intuition, which is what most of us do for most of our lives, if we keep ignoring it, it goes in the downward spiral. And eventually it's just this tiny little whisper. And of course, in a noisy modern world, that whisper is hard to hear. But when we take that time out and we start trusting our intuition and acting on the messages we're getting, we start to build a much more trustworthy relationship with it. Biggest key to intuition is we don't know anything. Not just we don't know everything, in the sense of the universe being an unlimited thing. We know so little. We really do. And once we start to acknowledge and understand that, it changes everything. Because what we know is our version of the truth. And our version of the truth is based on how we were raised, our parents, the schools we went to, the society we're raised in, our culture, all sorts of different things. And as a result, different people will have different truths. Now, I know my uncle's a policeman and he'd rock up to, car accidents. And if they interviewed 10 different bystanders, they would get 10 different stories. And it's a little bit the same as the truth. If we put ourselves into other people's perspectives, we can actually see different truths in that. So, for example, in my marriage, my ex-husband thought that I was crazy, that I had mental health issues, that there was something wrong with me. And I believe him to be a narcissist. Now, who's true? Well, actually, we both are, because from our perspective of the truth, we are. And there are some of our friends that believe him and they dump me like a, sack of spuds. And there are other people who also felt into it and went, actually, I've seen those behaviors in him and I completely understand it. But they, again, will be processing my truth or his truth or anybody else's truth through their own filters. So this again goes back to the kind of stuff that I say to anyone who's worrying about that confidence aspect, is we are perceiving other people's perceptions of us when we look at them and go, oh, they're thinking this about me. And that is most of teenage life. And then we take it obviously into adulthood. But I know I walked into lunch the other day. I've just done 4 days of archetypal life coaching up in northern New South Wales. And I walked into lunch one day and one of the guys was like, "Oh my God, you just walked in like you owned the place." And he was saying it as a really positive thing. My first reaction was, holy shit, what kind of arrogance was I putting on then? Oh my God. And I started questioning my behavior. But he meant it as a compliment because he's like, clearly that clearing we just did was freaking amazing for you. So again, you can see the different perceptive thing depending on what we've been told, what we've got stored in our subconscious and in our conditioning and the lenses that we see the world through. So there are multiple versions of the truth. So when you are intuiting, we could all do a reading and we will all get different insights. We will all get different experiences and we will all pass on different messages. So when we are using our intuition, we have to understand that it is our truth. It is our perspective of the truth. And the more we can stand in that, the better it can be. By admitting that we don't know everything, we actually get this greater freedom. Because then, you know what? Somebody said to me on the weekend, I feel like I'm making it all up. I said, you are. She's like, but I don't understand how that can work. I said, just go with it. Yes, your logical brain will want to talk you out of it, but we are making it up because we don't know the truth, and yet we also do. Again, it's that paradoxical thing where multiple things are true at the same time. Now, by the way, if you guys have any questions, do chuck your hands up because I'm happy to answer questions. Because I'm on full screen, I actually can't see the chat, but let me know if you've got any questions. Chuck your hand up or come off mute, by the way, because some of this can be hard to, I guess, get our heads around. It will get easier. But what I would like you to do is if you do have any questions, do ask me because then I can go into the bits. And if you're thinking it, you can guarantee somebody else is thinking it. So I should have also probably said that earlier, but so if we can sort of go, well, I actually don't know 100% of the truth here, then we actually take away that expectation and we can be more free and have more fun with our intuition. It actually takes a lot of the pressure off to go, okay, I don't actually know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to just tell you what I get, what I think, what I feel. Does that make sense? So once we start to understand those multiple versions of the truth, that we are all wearing different lenses and that we all think different things, all of a sudden it can change a lot of different things. So let us. Okay, so our intuition, I love words. I am a big word nerd. Our intuition, it comes from the Latin in, which is not opposite, without, into that protection, guardianship, looking after and caring for. So it is about our direct or immediate cognition and spiritual perception, understanding things without conscious reasoning. So we don't want the conscious brain involved. We want to be accessing our unconscious mind. Our unconscious mind actually does know everything that ever was, is, or will be. She has access to that. And the more we can bow down to her and allow her in and allow ourselves to trust her and to trust her guidance, it just changes your life. It's unbelievable. Our insight is about sight of the mind, our understanding things from within, having those deep understandings, those really visceral responses, those really activated body responses. A lot of people will feel it as, say, tingles in the body or tingles in the arms or legs, or a kind of a real fluttering in the stomach. A lot of people will kind of get that. But again, this is about you getting to understand how you process your intuition. I'm not here to tell you how you do things. The other thing is about intimacy. Intimacy seems a little bit strange, really, to be putting into a talk on intuition. But as we impress ourselves into that intuitive capability more and we become more familiar with it, we trust it more. And I love breaking down the words into what their components are. But intimacy stands for into me, I see. We're going in. We're not going out for the answers. We're turning inward and starting to trust what's inside. The other thing is, a lot of people expect that, when they ask for guidance or when they're tapping into their intuition, that they're going to get, a monologue from spirit back. It doesn't quite work like that. We use different language. So nature and the universe speak to us in signs and symbols. So that could be bees or dragonflies or number repetitions or songs or feelings. It could be a number of different things. And our job is actually to interpret it. The big thing that people forget to do is often they will ask for signs and then they forget to go and look for them. So often we will be talking to our guides, and especially in the beginning, I would ask for guidance all the time. And I'm like, well, my guides just aren't there. This is bullshit. But they were sending me signs all the time. And as soon as I started looking and remembering to look for the signs that I'd asked for, I was like, oh, how many of these must I have missed over the years? It's crazy. And my spirit team actually have a bit of a sense of humor as well. So, for example, there was when I first met my partner, I was kind of asking for a sign because I didn't really trust myself. Obviously, having gotten myself into, such a terrible situation before, I was a little bit unsure. And so I asked for a black and white feather. And then within about 10 meters, I had a black feather. And I'm like, oh, that wasn't what I asked for. And then I had a white feather and I'm like, oh, they've sent me a black and a white feather. And then a little further on, I had a black and white feather. So they're like, okay, how about you get specific? Do you want a black and white feather, or would you like a black and white feather in the one? And so you can also notice that when you've been using your intuition for a while, your spirit team will also have a different way of speaking. So mine do use a lot of humor. Some of the visuals I get in clinic when I'm working with people, I'm like, I'm really sorry, guys, but clearly this is the way that we're going to understand it best. And some of the most out there signs and symbols actually hit home really strongly with the people I'm delivering them to. Our intuition is also that knowingness that defies the logical explanation. One of my strongest senses, and we're going to get into those in a moment, is actually claircognizance, which is clear knowing. And it used to piss me off because I wanted to know the logic behind how I knew it. And that in itself, was quite challenging. But sometimes we do just know. We just know. We do understand all of our subconscious symbols and cues. Now, a lot of people think they don't, and this is especially true in our dream interpretation. People think that they do not understand their dreams, like that was just a crazy nightmare, or that was just bizarre. But our subconscious actually understands all of those cues, and that's why they give it. And I'll go into that a little bit more in detail after. Again, we're conditioned to think before we speak because we think of our conscious mind as the monarch of our being rather than the intuition. But we actually need both. We need both the logical mind or the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And it is through the subconscious mind that we can speak to our superconscious higher self. We can't access it from the consciousness because our brain thinks it knows everything. And again, as I said before, practice speaking before you think. So our first thoughts, instincts, or flutters, that is where you are on the money with whatever it is you're intuiting. So here we get to our intuitive gifts. So we have clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. We have clairaudience, which is clear hearing. We have claircognizance, which is clear knowing. We have clairsentience, which is clear feeling. And then we have clairsalience and clairgustance, which is clear smelling and tasting. And oftentimes clairsalience and clairgustance are kind of put in together because, as you know, we see ear, nose, throat doctors, they're all actually kind of combined. So sometimes, a lot of the time, if people have clairsalience, they will also have clairgustance, but it's not always the case. So I'm going to go through each of these. And I want you just to Feel into what you resonate with, what feels right for you. So, clairvoyance or clear seeing is receiving messages through our sense of sight. So, oftentimes we think of, what was that movie, The Sixth Sense, where, I see dead people. And yeah, that can be it. I don't see spirits, but I do sense them. And I do get flashes of images with them. So, again, when I have my clairvoyance working, I don't necessarily see it rolling out like a movie. Some people do. Some people can see people as clear as day. I will get flashes of image, or I will just know that somebody is coming through and they have these certain characteristics. But it's about using our eyes as receptors for the signals and symbols and signs that we're getting. So it can be our number of repetitions. Most people understand the angel numbers of 111, 222, 333, all of that. Any of those number repetitions. Now, again, with that, you can Google it. What is the meaning of this? And you will get other people's interpretations of it. And that's great. It's a great way to start. But feel into, what does that mean for me? Or ask yourself, what does that mean for me? Because not everyone wants to feel into things. You will get that first answer. For me, I saw those number of repetitions all the time: 555, 444, 1111. Like every time I looked at the clock, it was pretty much one of those numbers all the way through my divorce. Now, I didn't need to know what all the individual numbers meant, because to me, it just meant that I was being supported and it was showing me that I was on the right path. And that was enough for me at the time. Later, I did go and look at the numerical significance and the numerology side of it. But to be honest, knowing that I had my angels and my guides around and I was on the right path made sense to me at the time. It can be seeing animals. If you all of a sudden 3 days in a row see bees and you're like, shit, I haven't seen bees in ages. Again, well, what do bees mean to me? Is it that they work in community? So how am I interacting with my community? Am I tasting enough of the sweetness in life? Am I working too hard? Am I not working hard enough to get the results that I want? Dragonflies, very much about transformation. Magpies are grandmother energy. Butterflies, obviously, we all know the story of the butterfly. It starts off as a caterpillar, eats a shed ton of, leaves and stuff, turns into goop, and then comes out as a butterfly. So, again, there's a lot of meaning that you can read into that. But again, what does it mean to you? Even ladybugs. What do the particular colors mean? If it's red or if it's black or if it's, orange. Just starting, I think I've got black and yellow ones in my garden, which I hadn't seen before until I planted certain veggies. Anyway, different colors, they will mean different things to you. So ask yourself. And if you're not sure, you can Google the metaphysical meaning of, and whatever it is, or you can Google whatever it is and then medicine. So dragonfly medicine or bee medicine or magpie medicine. So you can use either of those Google searches. And again, just remember, you are reading somebody else's interpretation of what it means. And what happens if I have a book, for example, let's just pretend my book is the, one on animals or whatever. I will glance and I'll have a look at, that catches my eye. And then, my eye will be drawn here. And so if I remember looking up kookaburras, because the other week there was a kookaburra singing and I'm like, I haven't heard one of those in ages. So I looked up kookaburra and there were just a few words that caught my eye. And they were the only bits that I really read and took on, because clearly that's the way my intuition shows me the messages. It's where my eyes land. Can be seeing feathers or particular plants or flowers or having those repetitive dreams. I think my son's just gotten home. He's knocking on the window. Hang on one second. Apologies for this. It's Josh. Calm down. Sorry, I'm on a meeting. He didn't want to ring the bell because of the dog. Apologies. So again, and symbols. So again, you can ask yourself what it means to you. Clairaudience is clear hearing. So that can be where we obviously get the signs and symbols through our ears, through our hearing. It can come in a lot of forms. I never thought that I was clairaudient because the voice I heard in my head was my voice. But of course, it's my voice because that's how I think. So now the difference with my clairaudience is my clairaudience comes from this part of my brain. So it's like I'm actually hearing it through an ear down here. My thinking is up in these frontal lobes. So I can actually tell from where the message comes in as to whether it's clairaudience or if I'm just thinking it into reality. Clairaudience can be catching parts of songs if you switch radio stations in the car, or it can be, you know, where you play a random song on your Spotify and you're like, whoa, that's just crazy that those lyrics have come up now. Sometimes it can be catching parts of people's conversations on the street. And especially if it is then obviously mixed with a physical reaction, you know, whether it be tingles or butterflies or a sense of excitement or a different emotional state, that can also be there. And then hearing actual messages or voices in different parts of the brain. So again, I remember I was driving to a crystal shop not long after my grandfather passed away. And I'd been asking for signs that he was settled in and he was okay. And I heard his voice in my ear. And I was like, whoa, because I was pretty new to the work and it freaked me out a little bit, but I actually heard his particular voice. Sometimes you might get an idea if you're, you know, if you are channeling a spirit, it might be a different timbre, or you might get, you know, like that sing-songy type quality. You might just have a different quality to it when it's, you know, something else. But clairaudience is quite a common one. I guess the ones most people know are the clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentience, the clear feeling. Now the other thing is, I actually used to think I had tinnitus, and I remember speaking to my mentor about it, and she's like, "Oh, darling, no, you don't have tinnitus." But I would get a lot of ringing in my ears, and sometimes it would be really painful. Left ear. Left ear, I'm not good with lefts and rights, is often spiritual downloads or upgrades. And the right ear is sometimes physical upgrades or downloads. So that is often, you know, if we're moving up our vibration and coming into a new level of understanding or a new level of being, then we can have these upgrades happening to our body. The reason they talk about it being enlightenment is we are getting lighter. We are dropping some of the old stories. We are dropping some of the weight of the past, and we are becoming lighter as we move through, which means that our bodies do want different things and need different things as we kind of move up. But I can honestly tell you that most people are nowhere near as enlightened as they think. Most people would like to believe they're further along the journey than they are. But to me, I know that, you know, I'm still very, very, very much a human. And we know that because we still have stress, we still have struggle, we still, you know, have human experiences, and we're not, you know, able to meditate under a Bodhi tree for however long it is. But that clairaudience is that upgrade. It is enlightening. We are on that journey and on that path and becoming lighter with what we are carrying through life, which is heading in that right direction. Clairsentience, I used to think this was my strongest clair, but I actually use it as a backup. And I'll talk a little bit about backup emotions or senses later. So clairsentience, people used to ask me to, you know, they'd take me through a guided visualization and they'd talk about colors and all these things that you can see and create your own garden. I could not see. I would just have black behind my eyes, but I could feel the emotions. I could feel the colors. I remember sitting at a meditation once and she was talking about the ocean, and I could feel my body doing this as though I was bobbing on the waves, but I couldn't see the ocean. I couldn't hear the ocean. I could just feel like I was sitting on it. It might be butterflies in the stomach, tingles, full body shivers. but anything visceral that we feel in our body. So oftentimes that can be, we can feel other people's anxieties or other people's emotions. And it's how we learn to differentiate between other people's emotions and our own. So I know my anxiety feels very different from people's anxiety that I am picking up from them. And again, that just takes practice and time. Claircognizance is clear knowing. That is a little thought or message just being popped into a little letterbox, hole in the top of your head, and you just know stuff. And I know for me, that was one of the hardest things, because I wanted to know how I knew and I wanted all the logic behind it. So this is why I would use clairsentience as my backup, because I trusted it. It was an actual feeling. It was something that was more concrete than just knowing stuff. So claircognizance is clear knowing. And then we have clairsalience and clairgustance. So that is senses through, smell or taste. So, you might smell tobacco smoke, or you might taste tobacco smoke, or you might taste whiskey or smell a certain flower. For me, when my grandmother's around, I often will smell, a hint of coffee beans. Or for my grandfather, I can't even describe the smell, but he had a very distinct, grandpa smell to him. And that doesn't mean, grandpa smell as in what people often think about in nursing homes, but he just smelled like my grandpa. So I will sometimes get a whiff of that. So that's the clairsalience and clairgustance. So these are all those different things for consideration. Backup senses. So that was what I was talking to you about before. My main sense was claircognizance. I knew things, but I would pass it through my sensory system first. And so I thought, because I couldn't tell which came first and which came next, I thought that my clairsentience was my strongest. But I was actually using other senses to back it up. I would use my sight and my hearing and all of that stuff. We can also talk about our spirit guides, totems, and guardian angels. So we look at how do they communicate and how do we converse with them. A lot of people, this can make them quite uncomfortable. Now, the idea for me when I started going is, you know what, if I do have them and I'm ignoring them, then I figure that's going to be worse than me talking to them and building a relationship with them and them not being real. I'd prefer to do it that way and pretend that they exist. But I have to say, look, I have seen enough of mine. I have got enough symbols and messages from them that I really, really do trust in them and believe in them and love them dearly. I've just had my latest guide drawn at the latest Mind, Body, Spirit. And I talk to them all the time. Now, a lot of people will do their sit-in meditation and they'll be like, but my guides don't speak to me. So if I walked into a meeting at your work or wherever it is you are, and I sat down and went, how many of you would just go, what a rude cow? You're not going to walk up to me and go, oh, by the way, you just go, what the fuck is her problem? So have a conversation. Start a conversation. Hi, my name's Amanda Kate. I know you're up there. I would love to get to know you better. I would love to know what work you want me to bring into this realm, whatever it is. I speak to mine every morning, even if I don't get any answers back, which I usually do. But I'm just like, thank you guys so much for supporting me. Thank you for showing me the way. Show me what I'm not seeing today, or I will have different things like that I will ask for. So yeah, again, dream interpretation, it is a really big, it's a really big part of our intuitive work, because our subconscious is more open overnight because we don't have as many inputs going on. So when we're looking at dreams, we are really looking into deep symbology. So I remember once I had this dream and I was holding this snake's head, but the snake was still somehow managing to bite me. And I remember looking at it going, what is that about? And scary dreams like that, by the way, are sent to us so we remember them. Because often, if we don't have, again, that physical reaction of, holy shit, that was really frightening, they fade out as we go through the day. Whereas if we've had a really, really strong reaction, grief or fear, we remember them the next day. So if you think about what snakes symbolize, they need to shed their skin so they can grow. And the biting I knew was not killing me, but it was like I was putting myself through unnecessary pain at that time as I was growing. So then I was doing some work about how I could ease my transition so that it was less painful for me, because I was going through quite a lot of emotional disturbance at the time. So again, asking yourself questions. What does this part of it mean to me? What does that part of it mean to me? You know, why do you think it was biting my hand? Because I wasn't handling things well. I thought I was handling things well, hence the reason I was thinking I was holding the snake by the head, but I was not handling things well. And when it came into real life, I was really able to resonate with that. Discernment. If we are stressed, our intuition does not work very well at all. But if we are calm, if we have been, doing a lot of work, if our adrenals are feeling, nourished and nurtured, discernment is incredible. What is loving to me? What is not loving to me? What do I need to cut away to focus where I need to focus? Discernment is the edge of the sword, cutting away what we no longer need so that we can move forward into what we do need. And discernment is which bits of information mean something to me. Because as I said, we're bringing in something like 400 billion bits of information every second. Discernment is what happens when we become less stressed and more of the observer in our life. Because when we're in stuff, we cannot discern. And that's part of the reason that if you are healers or looking for healers or whatever it is, you need to be working with people. Because when you're dealing with your own shit, you don't want to be taking that into practice. You don't want to be taking that into sessions with people. You need to be able to be working on that with somebody else. So that's also really, really important, just as an aside. As much as we can build our intuition, sometimes we're too close to our own shit to be able to see it clearly and properly. So getting that discernment, when do I need help? How do I need help? Who do I need to have help me? I will often ask that question if I'm struggling with something, and I will just have a name pop into my head and I'll go, okay, I'll ring them. I will ring them, and you can guarantee within a week they've had a cancellation and I'm working with them. It just magically happens. And if I ring them and they can't see me, then they put me onto somebody who can see me, and I'm like, okay, that was the person that I needed. They just happen to know of them. So again, the more you work with it, the more you build it, the more the more trustable it is. I don't think that's a word, but anyway, I'll make them up. As Ruth knows, I'm very good at making up words. The other thing about discernment is it is always self-loving. If we do this in our highest good, it is always in everybody's highest good, because our highest good cannot be detrimental to anybody else. Otherwise, it's not in our highest good, because we are all connected. Likewise, if what I'm doing is detrimental to myself, it is detrimental to everybody. So that is something also to keep in mind. And that's why I love this work, is because it does build your discernment. It does build your relationship with yourself. Practice, 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 practice wherever you can. I practice with small things, If you order a coffee and you really, really wanted a chai or vice versa, you're going to be a bit disappointed. How many, I had a client I was talking about this with the other day, and she's like, oh my God, I so get it. My husband made eggs the other morning and I ate them because he'd made them for me, and I felt guilty if I didn't, but I really didn't want them and I so didn't enjoy them. What I really wanted was cereal. And it's a small thing. And this goes into the practicing. We don't want to practice on the really big things. But those little things make a massive, massive difference to us. So practice with it. If you feel like sushi for lunch and you're in a food court, go get a Boost juice or something, and you're going to go, oh, that was disappointing. I didn't like that. wish I'd gotten sushi. Or if you get what you're wanting, I really wanted sushi, let's go get that. Your body will love it because your body's actually telling you there's something in there that I need. And when we start trusting that as well, again, things really, really amp up. Again, asking, is it in my highest good to pass along this information? So I always have the idea, is it the most loving thing I can do? Because sometimes I will get messages through, and this is probably more along that practitioner thing, but it does also happen when you're sitting with friends or whatever and you get a little message in. Sometimes they're just for our information. I actually had a client in the other week and they had lost a child at 8. And I was sitting there and I heard a little voice in my ear saying, "Mummy, I love you." And I'm like, oh, like, is that just what I want? Like, do I just want him to be here? Is that just what I want him to say? You know, that's a pretty normal kind of message. Anyway, we were in the middle of something, so I kept working, and then I got it again, "Mummy, I love you." And I'm like, am I just imagining this? You know, even with all my practice, I'm like still going, because it could be very traumatic. In the end, I asked the body, and on the 4th time he said the message, I said to her, "Look, I know you haven't come to me for mediumship stuff. I have a message from your son coming through. Is it okay if I pass it on?" So even though I had checked with the body, I also asked her, I said, because if you're not open to it, then I don't feel it's in your highest good. And she had the biggest shift and healing that day because of the other stuff he brought in after that. So it was in the highest good to pass on the information. But again, because it is losing a child, because I cannot even comprehend the pain that that would cause to somebody, despite the fact that I've had a miscarriage, I've never lost an 8-year-old child to cancer. And so for me, I didn't know if that was the most loving thing I could do or not. And so I really wanted to clarify. I both clarified with spirit and then I clarified with the person in the physical realm. Ask lots of questions, lots and lots and lots and lots of questions. Is this in my highest good? Do I feel safe doing this? Is this message something to pass on? Whatever it is, get curious. Get really, really curious. Get curious with yourself, get curious with life. Ask questions, because questions, I don't ever think there are actually too many answers in this world. I think there's just more questions and more questions and more questions. So some of the ones I ask every day are, is this in my highest good? I will also ask things like, you know, I guess similar to that, is this in my best interest to, you know, pursue this? I will ask them, what am I not seeing? Because I can see other people standing with roadblocks in front of them. So I want to know, what are my roadblocks? So show me what I'm not seeing. I'll ask them to show me the way. If I don't know what my next step is, it'll be show me the way. I ask questions of them. I converse with them. I want to have a two-way conversation because I want a relationship with them. And you know what relationships are like on this, you know, in this 3D reality. If we don't work on them, they're not the greatest. So again, keep curious, keep open, keep inquiring, and keep knowing that you don't know, because then we're always open to know more, to learn more, to do different, to learn different stuff. So when we get set up, and I will take you through this, the very first thing I do is I ask my ego and personality to step out of the room. Now, I asked somebody to do that the other day and they're like, "I'm not coming from ego." And I'm like, I'm not saying that you are, but when we ask our ego and personality to step out, we get clearer messages, because it's 1 or 2 layers that we're asking to not filter through. We ground our energy. So I'm going to get you all right now to close your eyes, and I'm going to take you through how you do this. So it doesn't actually matter if you breathe in or breathe out, but just make sure you're breathing deeply. You are breathing right into your belly. You're feeling your belly moving in and out. When we breathe up in the top of our chest, we don't get that same calming to our nervous system. So breathe right down into your belly. And then I want you to push that energy out through the soles of your feet. Connect into Mother Earth. Now you can either do that by tree roots, or you can put a big anchor down into the magnetic heart of the earth. If you've done tree roots, make them bigger and deeper than you've ever made them before. Then I want you to draw that earth energy up through your legs, up, energizing your base chakra, your sacral, your solar plexus, your heart, your throat, your third eye, and your crown. And then push that earth energy out of your crown and connect it up into the heavens. Then draw that heavenly energy down through your crown, down through your chakra system, down through your legs and back into the earth, so that you are connected to earth and heaven like two battery terminals connected in. And then I want you to feel into your heart space. Imagine it expanding and opening as you continue breathing deeply. And the final step is to drop into innocence, to imagine yourself as a newborn baby with no expectations, no stories, just curiosity. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So in doing that, we're anchoring ourselves into the earth. Now, a lot of people who do this work don't think about anchoring into the earth. They talk about grounding a lot, but when they're going into these kind of things where we're needing to push up and connect to intuition, if you imagine we're here on the physical plane, we need to lift our energy up. And then the spirits who are closest to earth, they would be like our ancestors, grandparents, angels like Archangel Michael sits in this kind of realm. They drop their energy down a bit and we pull ours up. Now, to get to our spirit guides and our higher guides, we need to push our energy right up and they come down a little bit to interact with us. But the more we anchor in and tether, the higher we can get. So a lot of people don't think about anchoring in because they think that if they anchor in, it's going to weigh them down. But it actually allows us to go higher up, and it allows us to pass messages through easier in 3D language and 3D reality. So that's one of the ways that that is the way I get into my intuition. So one of the ways that I am going to be working with people on this is with intuition development circles. So I used to do it as in person on Tuesday nights, which was lovely. But actually, having done so much energy work online now, I'm actually realizing that the connection can be easier for people online because they've got less energies getting in the way. So I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. And also it means that people don't then need to take the time out to travel to and from, and I can reach people from further afield. So I'm looking at running 4 sessions a month. There'll be 2 on Tuesday evenings and 2 on Friday mornings. And I've got all the dates set out. They're going to be 90 minutes each. So what we are going to do, it's going to be a mix of circle stuff and intuition stuff. So it will be sharing our challenges, our opportunities, struggles, wins. We'll be doing energy updates. So I will talk to you about where the planets are and what they're doing in moon phases and a few of those bits so that you can understand, I guess, the energy as a whole. It is amazing how many times I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I'll look at some of the astrologers and I'll be like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. We'll be doing intuition exercises. So we will be doing readings. We will be doing all sorts of different fun and games things to build our intuitive muscles. I will also do clearings, coaching, kinesiology as appropriate, because if one of us has a block to our intuition. I can guarantee you everybody has a similar kind of thing going on. I still have blocks with my intuition, even though I work with this stuff all the time. So I will do clearings as and when needed. We'll play games with our intuition. And yeah, so it's kind of, it's going to be really connective. It's going to be fun. And it's a way that you can be consistently tuning into your intuition. We will also have a members only Facebook group where we can share wins, we can ask questions, we can connect, we can go, oh my God, this happened. What do you guys get? Because again, there's nothing wrong with asking for other people's opinions or searching for other people's interpretations of what symbols you're getting. It's actually really good because then you can go, yeah, I really resonate with that. I didn't see that bit before, or I didn't get that bit, but I'm glad you did because that tells me a lot. So there's really good interaction that can happen with that because, as I say, everybody sees things differently because they've got different filters on. So everybody's perspective helps you build a more 360-degree view of what's going on for you. So I will escape out of that. Oh, how do I stop? There we go. Stop screen sharing. There we are. There we are. All right. So you can take, okay, other things. I will very quickly go through this and then we can do some questions and answers because I kind of went through that as quickly as I could. So next month, I'm going to actually be offering some free healing zone sessions for all one-to-one clients. They're usually around sort of 10 minutes-ish. But before every kinesiology or coaching session, I'm going to be offering a healing zone session, which is basically where we work on your either your digestive system, your circulatory system, your muscular system, glandular system, elimination, or brain connection, neurology. It's a new technique that I have been taught by a great healer over in WA. So that's going to be a little freebie for people just to amp up some of their healing stuff. If you want to sort those out separately and go through, basically I can do all 6 zones in 3 sessions. I can talk to you about that. I also work in 3 different ways with clients. So I do one-to-one, either 60 or 90 minutes, although I have done 2 hours. I actually had a 4-hour session with one of my kinesiologists once, which is a bit crazy, but awesome at the same time. We did a lot. So again, you know, if you've got something specific you want to work through and we want to do a deep dive, that's absolutely fine too. I do transformational and intuitive coaching. So the transformational coaching is the archetypal life coaching where we do really deep dives. We clear a lot of shit in those sessions, clear a lot of limiting beliefs. We clear a lot of negative influences. If you want to then go and do the archetypal work, I will take you through the archetypal work, which is where we find our highest expression of who we are in this world. And the intuitive coaching is basically 1 hour every week where we really deep dive on what you need. And again, we use intuition. I bring in all sorts of tools, all sorts of ways of doing things. I've also decided that I am going to launch a 12-month access to me kind of thing, whereby you get 2 sessions a month. And tech support as well. So you can ask me questions and we will work for 12 months together to get you to that next level. We can either do 2 sessions at basically 4 hours a month, so 2 2-hour sessions or 2 1-hour sessions. So that is also one of the ways that you can work with me. And finally, apart from obviously the intuition circles with the beautiful Kylie, who is down the bottom there, or my screen anyway, we are also running only for Melbourne people, unfortunately, the Inner Canvas, which is going to be run on we've got 4 dates planned before the end of the year, which is where we take you through 3 different artworks. So you will be tapping into your creative side and unleashing your creativity. No experience required and no creative muscles necessary, because it will be about opening them up. And in between each artwork, I will be taking you through processes and clearings to see what else we can unlock and to see what's standing in the way of you bringing your full creative self out into the world. So that was my little sales pitch. I'm done with that. Oh yeah, and my books. Still, if you haven't got it, I have the same book, two different titles, because I really wanted the working title on my bookshelf as well. So the one that I am marketing is Divine Messy Human, and the secret club title is Don't Let That Cunt Steal Your Bricks, because I really, really needed that on a cover of a book. There are only a few of the secret club titles left, because funnily enough, they sold out quicker than the other one with people who knew me. So yeah, they're available on my website and on Kindle now and on other bookstores. Anywho, unmute yourselves and ask some questions while you've got me, because I know that was a lot to take in.
With the intuitive circle, you know how you put 4 dates a month. So is it just going to one session a month? Is that what you mean?
No, as many as you want. You can come to all 4 if you want. So it'll be one price, and you can come to 1 a month, or you can come to 4 a month. They're going to be an hour and a half each. So it'll be 7:30 till 9 p.m. every other Tuesday, and 10 till 11:30 a.m. Friday mornings every other Friday. And it'll be the $97 a month. So I think I've got 24 dates set before up until the 16th of December. And then next year I have, 51 dates. So it's basically either 4 or 5 a month, apart from December where we only have 3. So yeah, and it'll just be a come along. So a lot of it will be, it'll be connection. It'll be women's circle stuff as well. So we won't just be looking at obviously just the intuition, because there's a lot of stuff that comes out of that connection. You know what? I'm having these issues at the moment. Even when we're answering those questions, we're drawing on our intuition. So it helps us to read things that are going on. So yeah.
Look, I just wanted to, I'd never heard of clairaudience before I'd met you. And it's something I've experienced all my life. And it was actually through someone else when I mentioned tinnitus as well. And ever since reading your book and meeting you, it's been a case of I actually now stop and just sort of go, what is it you want me to know? Now, I don't know if that's doing the right thing, but it's a case of just sort of going, hey, look, and they're all different tones. That's how someone said to me, it's not tinnitus because it's all different tones. Yeah. Whereas tinnitus is constant and it's just a high pitched one, whereas I get really deep tones, and I got buzzed the other day through one ear and out the other one. Yeah, and it was just kind of like, holy shit, what's happening sort of thing. So I just want to thank you. I don't really have a question around it, but it's just a case of you've clarified for me, just like, oh, that's what that is, as opposed to me just going, okay, that's just weird.
And there's no right or wrong. So I did hear you sort of say, I don't know if that's the right thing to do. You know what? There is no right and wrong. And that's the beauty of this work. It just is. If you're called to ask that question, there's a reason you're asking. So sometimes like I will get a buzz and it will be, I really need to listen. Like I just know I need to listen to what this person's about to say, because that's going to give me a little nugget. And often it may be what they don't say in what they say, if that makes sense, that I actually pick up on. And especially in clinic, that can lead to some massive breakthroughs and healings, because I'm like, you're avoiding that. Right. The other thing is with that, which I didn't mention in the first bit, is we can set the volume. Crazy. I know. So I used to get it. So I would actually stop and I would be like, oh my God, like it would hurt physically. The spirit world do not understand, even though they have had human experiences, they don't understand time. They don't understand volume. They just go, hey, I want your attention. Come on. So when they send it through, they're not always aware. So now I have, unless it is literally life-threatening, you keep it below a sort of 6 or 7. In clinic, they're not allowed to bring it above about a 4 or 5 unless it's, like I say, that emergency stuff. At night, it's not allowed to get above a 2, because I would be woken up at night from it. I'd be like, what the fuck is that? Like, pain in my ear. So they are, as much as we work for them, they also work for us.
Yeah.
So the way I look at it, there's no Centrelink up there. We need to give them jobs to do. Otherwise, they're going to all be, drunks on a park bench or whatever, sitting around with their flagons in paper bags.
Yeah.
We need to give them jobs to do.
Yeah.
So we need to ask them and we need to guide them because they don't know what our physical body can handle and what it can't. So again, you can set the volume. You can set where they come. So I don't allow, unless they're my team or somebody, I live with's team, they're not allowed in my house unless it's specific to a healing session. So if I have a client at home, yep, fine. Whoever needs to come in for that session, come in. Even if it's a negative entity that we need to clear, you can come in. Same thing at clinic. Come, party time, providing you're relevant to that client, party time, let's go. And you're in control. That's the important thing. So we have this little girl at clinic. She lives at my McKinnon clinic and she only comes out after everyone's gone home. So I always, when I'm locking up clinic, I'll say goodnight to her. I don't know her name, but she sort of hangs around Alex's door and sort of peeks out at me as I leave. And I'm like, yeah, see ya. See you tomorrow. But we're not getting rid of her because she's fine. She's harmless. She's actually a beautiful little energy. So, we've cleared other entities from the space, but not her.
Cool.
And so, again, you can have those intuitions and those intentions about what am I trying to achieve here? What do I want from my team? I had a time when I was first opening up, I couldn't even go into Woolworths without feeling like I was going to vomit because I was picking up way too much stuff. And so again, that energy management stuff and setting my intentions of, where my auric field is in different spaces, for example, help me then to be able to go into those kind of places. So again, when I'm working, I will fill the room with my aura. I will push my aura out so I can read the entire space and whatever's here. But if I did that in Woolworths, I wouldn't be able to cope. So when I'm in Woolies, I actually drag it in. Normally, it's probably about a meter and a half. That's why it's social distancing is 1.5 meters, by the way. It's because then we're all in our own auric field space, just so you know. But yeah, so usually you'd imagine about 1.5 meters is your auric field out. So yeah, so you can kind of play with those sorts of things as well, especially if your clairsentience is ridiculously, sensitive. So
Excellent.
yeah,
thank you.
That's all right.
I had something that came up
2
nights ago, very, very random for me. Like you were saying that things woke you up. I had a very vivid dream that the house was full of smoke and it was on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I got up and I went to the lounge room, looked at the fire, and I'm like, the fire's not even on. And my husband's like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like, I don't know, but there was smoke all through my room and everything. I swear it was in my room. But then by the time I got to the lounge room, it was nothing. And I come back to bed. So that was, pretty intense, only like 2 days ago. So I've never experienced anything that vivid for a long time. So yeah,
see, that's the problem when you register for shit like this is then you guys go, so now we can start playing. So you'll also notice, like I know I went away last weekend and I was struggling with some stuff and I knew exactly why, because then I went away the weekend and we did deep dives into it and I'm like, oh, that's why I had to go through all that. It does. So what kind of fires produce smoke? Too wet sometimes.
I think as well, like when I was sort of in it and a day or so after, it was more like, was it smoldering? Was something smoldering? What's smoldering? That was what I was asking myself. What was it trying to symbolize to me? So that's sort of just been in the back of my mind since it happened. And we've talked about because he was like, you were just so adamant. I said, well, there was smoke in the room. But then there wasn't. So
could you smell it as well?
No, it was just sort of hazy everywhere in the bedroom. And then by the time I went to the lounge room, which is only the next room, it was like I sort of went, oh, there is no smoke. What the hell am I doing? Why am I standing in here? And why did I just jump out of bed? So but then I've sort of been trying to process what was that meaning?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So a few different things that immediately come up, and I will get some others to chime in here because I know some of you have also done intuitive work, and I'm just curious what else you think, because this is a really good exercise. The first thing that comes in for me is often it's wet fire that creates a lot of smoke. So water in any symbolism is usually our emotional self, or it is our emotional self. So are you trying to dampen your flames and tame your fire? Are you too emotional and can't get the flames up enough? So you've kind of got that. So the fiery, that's a real masculine energy. It's a transformational energy. It's a transmutational energy. So transforming is taking the molecules and putting them back together in a different way. Transmutation is changing into something completely different. But fire is a way that we can do both of those. If we've got too much fire, it can be scary, and it can be a lot, and it can be destructive as hell. If we don't have enough fire, it's insipid and wishy-washy. We need that right level of fire. And we actually control our own thermostat. So we often will submit to other people's authority, thinking that, they guide us, they direct us, they have more knowledge than us, or whatever the hell it is. And we will submit to their authority. Sometimes we need a little bit more fire and stand up for ourselves. The emotional aspect, if we haven't got enough water on our fire, we're not putting it out enough for the job that we're needing to do. If we're putting, if we've kind of got a lot of watery emotions going on and we're trying to build our fire, we don't have that balance right. So and this is part of the thing. Like I'm an Aries, so I've got all that fiery energy. My partner's Cancer, but we work well together because I've done a lot of the work and I've tempered that fire on my own. So he doesn't douse the flames. So it's kind of looking at that thermostat within you, and where's your emotional self sitting and where's that fire sitting? Because again, if we're trying to suppress our fire and it's actually not in our highest good, we can end up with that smoldering anger sitting underneath. And if that anger smolders too long, that's when we get our emotional vomit happening. And we become like that Vesuvius volcano, and we will just let it out over everybody. Yeah. So again, it's looking at controlling that thermostat. So when I think of really smoky fire, and again, even if you think about the Native Americans as well, they used to send the smoke signals. Now, if you get the right level of smoke signal, it's great. If you don't, everyone's coughing and spluttering.
Yeah.
And you're kind of, choking everybody. So again, are there ways that you can temper the communication so that other people can process it better? What does anyone else get from that?
I was going to, I had the smoke signals thing come in for me as well when you were talking just before. Marianne, sorry, when you were talking. And the other thing that I guess I felt was initially just that where there's smoke, there's fire. So if you found the smoke but not fire, is that an indication that there's potentially something within your world, whether it's you or partner or kids or whatever, somewhere in your world that there's something that needs your attention, and the smoke is a signal to draw you towards that?
Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
And I'm just going to say that I would never have said that had I not done Amanda's intuition stuff in the past, because the first time we had to do any sort of reading for anyone, I was like, don't pick me, I don't want to do it. But having done it a few times, as you were talking, I was much more able to feel into it and brave enough to speak up. So thanks.
Good job. Very proud of you. I'm having a proud mama bear moment there.
Yay.
I was just going to say.
So what does that Yeah.
Oh, no, I was going to say in some things when I'm like conscious and awake and all that sort of thing, like I've never had a dream like that for a very long time. But like when there's things coming to me in daytime, I normally try to say however I'm feeling, and I'm like, who does this belong to? And then I return to sender with consciousness attached if it's not helping me, like with my anxiety and things like that. And that's helped me a lot to get back to my calm. But obviously
absolutely.
in the middle of the night, while that was sort of happening, I'm just like, what the hell? So it's very different. But so I often do that as well. So
and in that is a really good way to do it, and I suggest that too. So a lot of people want to know who's sending them the bad juju, or who's, you know, or they'll try and make that conscious connection of, oh, this person's sending me bad energy or whatever, or I'm sending that person bad energy. You know what, I don't give a shit whose it is, and I don't mean to be rude, but I couldn't care less. I just don't want it on me, so I always send it back via a third party. So I had one day where I was walking the beach and I could just feel the negative energy coming to me from my ex-husband. And I'm like, hand it back. And my intention when I say hand it back, but I can't ever be bothered saying all this, so it is implied and intended, is I'm sending this energy back to the universe so that they can send it back to whomever it belonged to. The reason I say that is... it may not be the person who's sending it to you. They may just be projecting onto you. But if they're having it projected onto them, I kind of want it to go back to its original owner, if that makes sense. And I'm not God, so I can't choose who that is. So I just go, right, send it back to whomever it belongs to. And if they are meant to find the tools to deal with it in their lifetime, help them find the tools. Because again, I'm not God and it's not my choice. If it was my choice, I'd have everyone tooled up and they would have all of that stuff. But some people are not meant to have that path. So again, I kind of step out of it. I give it back to the universe, and then it doesn't matter whose it is. It gives me that third party to go through, a mediator. And I find it so much better. So it's a really good one to use. Because again, if I go, oh yeah, I know my ex-husband's sending me shit and I'm trying to send it back to him, I always worry then that I'm feeding the connection. I'm not stopping the connection. So that's where the third party works really beautifully. And again, the same as you say with your anxiety and stuff. Brilliant. Yep. Any other questions?
Funny, when I booked, like it just came up on I was on the computer doing work and then the Facebook thing came up for tonight.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, I'll book that. And then I was sitting here and then this music started and I thought it was outside. Like literally I thought, God, the neighbour's going off tap. Like this music is so loud. Anyway, I got up before and it was my bloody Google thing next to my bed.
Ah, what was it playing?
It was playing all these really good songs, like, you know, just songs I was like, oh, I'm really enjoying this beat. Like, and I was trying to watch TV as well. And I'm like, where did that come from? Like, all of a sudden, this music's just playing. And I'm here by myself. Like, there's no one here. No one turned it on.
See, when that happens for me, I will always ask. Yeah, I'll always look at what the song is, or I'll look at the lyrics. Because I'm always like, oh, I wonder why that's the one they started with, you know.
I can't even remember what they started with, but it was good music. Like I was like, oh, this is really good.
So where do you need more music in your life?
I know, yeah. Maybe it's that bringing more joy out again. Like that seems more play.
Yeah.
So
yeah, maybe it was confirmation that you were doing the right thing by booking into this, and joy and happiness and fun.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, this is weird. Like, then obviously what you were talking through, I'm like, okay, that's very strange.
And I think that is a really important part of it, is playing and having fun, because so often we want to learn a new skill and it gets all serious and all the rest of it. We've got enough serious shit going on. We don't need more, I hate to say it, but we need a little bit more fun and a little bit less rigidity. So, you know, I do like to make it fun whenever I'm learning things. And innocent adventurer isn't one of my main archetypes. So that's definitely something I've kind of developed. The innocent adventurer is all about fun and adventure and newness and all of that. But yeah, it's quite an important one because that's where we get all our ideas from. So I really like to have that.
We had a few weird things happen. Lost a lot of our teaspoons. And so I went to see a psychic like after that. And she's I said, oh, while we're here, can anyone tell me where the spoons have gone? And then she said, Grandpa's looking guilty up the back here, and something like that. And anyway, we sort of I laughed about it, whatever. And anyway, then a little bit later on, they all come back.
Wow.
So yeah. So now the laughing joke in the house is, you know, when the spoons aren't in the drawer, it's like, all right, who's taking them? Granddad, give them back, please.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And they all come back. So yeah, and when you speak of having fun, like we do a little bit of that, like, yeah, my husband and I know that there's people here. So we talk to them and the kids look at us going, what are you doing? I'm like, just, you know, check it in and that sort of thing with them. And my daughter actually saw a dog the other day. We've got 3 dogs, but they were all with us, and she saw it in another room. Yeah. So I was just like, okay, cool. Like I didn't freak out. She didn't freak out, but she was like, hang on, wait, what? Yeah. So hope that she taps into that a little bit more, or doesn't let that go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think when you've got people who are open to it around you, you do tend to find it more encouraging. Like I let mine go because I was shamed for it, and I was embarrassed for it. I was humiliated for some of the stuff that I saw and I said and all of that kind of stuff. But if you've got people around you who are supporting it, you know, my kids get a bit funny about it now because both of them have gifts, but they don't want to admit it. You know, they're at that age. But again, I let the crazy out and they see it and they, you know, and they're often like, oh, and then they're like, I hate that you're right, you know, like
the teenage look of disgust, but
oh, yeah,
you are right.
Yeah. Fuck it. I want to be right so bad. But yeah, and you know, and there are certain things that I pick up that it's not appropriate, you know, for me to share. But I'll go, okay, thanks for that, you know, little message. They're struggling today or whatever it is. So it is really good. And it was funny, as soon as you said the teaspoons, I was like, which grandparent's that? So it's funny that you then said grandpa, because I was like,
well, of course,
okay,
the hubby was blaming me. And I'm like, hang on, they go straight from the dishwasher into the drawer when I'm doing it. So if they're anywhere else, ask the kids, like, where are they leaving them, in their room, whatever. But they were nowhere to be found. But yeah, it's good that it's beautiful. A running joke though. So yeah.
Yeah. I remember putting a crystal next to my bed. This was still back when I was in the marital home, but after we'd separated. And I put a crystal next to my bed and I did not touch it. Like it was just next to my bed and it disappeared by the morning. And I was like, I know I didn't knock it. Like I checked under the bed. I literally looked everywhere. And about 4 weeks later, it was in my bed. And I was like, huh, okay.
Very random.
Fair enough. It was bizarre. But sometimes things will, you know, it was because I was using that crystal every day and they've gone, you don't want to be relying on that. So they've taken it away from me. And then when they realized that I'd broken that reliance, they gave it back to me. So yeah, it was quite fascinating. So again, there's those messages that come through as well. So yeah, excellent. Any more questions? Otherwise, I will have to let you all go.
No, I'm good.
No, all
Fantastic.
Good.
Well, I don't have the membership set up yet, but I will send out this recording so that you can rewatch it if you so desire. And if you've got any questions, please feel free just to message me either through Messenger or my Facebook page or wherever it is, or via email, however you want to get it to me. I'm more than happy to answer questions. I'm more than happy to have a chat with you, whatever it is. And yeah, I will, like I say, I'll email this out because there's quite a big list of people, but you know, I kind of know night times can be hit and miss. So I will send it out to everybody who's registered, and yeah, just let me know if you're interested. And once I do eventually have the link set up, I will set it out. But at the moment, the dates for July are the 12th, the 15th, the 26th and the 29th of July. So the 12th and 26th are the Tuesdays, and the 15th and 29th are the Fridays. And it'll be 7:30 p.m. till 9 p.m. or 10 a.m. till 11:30 a.m. Mostly so that Friday mornings I have time to go walk my dog and get my chai, and then I can come back in and play. The only thing you will need for the intuition circles are obviously pens and paper, and probably a set of oracle cards. If there's anything else you need, I'll let you know as we kind of play along. If you have crystals and things like that, sometimes it might be useful, but for the most part I want to do things where we're literally just using our energy and things like that. So but it's always useful to have a set of cards that you connect with and that you use, and whether that's traditional tarot or oracle, then it doesn't actually matter too much. But yeah, it's wonderful to see you all. Thank you all so much for coming. And I look forward to staying in touch. If you haven't joined my Facebook group, I haven't been in there the whole time yet, but Divine Messy Human on Facebook. I am starting to get more active in there. But yeah, things have been a bit crazy. So I'm just, yeah, finding the time. And eventually I'll have a VA who will help me manage it. So yeah, sending lots and lots of love to all of you. Have a great sleep.
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
See ya.
Bye. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.